What's up guys, Johnny here, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about the Meteor 65 by Beta FPV. Alright guys, so for those of you living in North America, maybe the northern half of the country, maybe you're up in Canada or somewhere in Northern Europe or something like that, you're currently experiencing winter. And for me, when things turn cold outside, I turn to the Whoops inside. Now, I have not flown a Whoop or Tiny Whoop or Whoop style product since I think last March, last April, whenever we had the championship in Detroit. I just love flying outdoors. I love flying 5-inch. When the weather's nice, I take advantage. But when things turn cold, I go indoors, I break these bad boys out and I give them a shot. Last year, I actually won the championship in Detroit using a brushed Whoop, and that was the B-Brain Lite. So anyway, this year I decided I wanted to check out brushless alternatives and try flying those. And at the time I wanted to build my own because that's kind of what I'm used to doing. I wasn't able to find a flight control that made sense for me using DSMX. If you watched my other video previously where I talked about when I switch over to my IX-12, I fly an IX-12 now. Now, I wasn't able to find a DSMX flight controller, so I ended up getting the Beta FPV 1S flight controller using FrSky. So I flew that for a bit, got used to it, flew the Beta FPV 0802 19500 kV motors. That thing flew pretty well, but I really wanted a DSMX option. Now, since I couldn't fly in that flight controller in DSMX, I ended up ordering the Black Friday special on Black Friday. I ordered it directly from Beta FPV, so it took me over a month to get this bad boy, but I finally got it in my hands, and I gotta tell you, I absolutely love this little quad. I have been smashing, bashing, just flying the heck out of this thing, primarily in my basement, testing it out downstairs. But I've also been flying it at local meetups, local races, and so far I have not yet lost with this guy. He just flies so good. It's extremely locked in, extremely tight. Now, if you watch other reviews, if you look into the product, you'll see it's not the lightest quad out there. There's definitely lighter Whoops, and weight makes a big difference when it comes to Whoops. But I'm also a big believer in that your ability as a pilot, you can learn to fly anything better. And if you take a look at some of this footage here of me flying this thing, I'm flying it pretty damn well, and it's gonna be hard to beat it even with other quads. So even though it may weigh in at 22.9 grams versus a 20 gram quad, it still is able to hold its own on a course if you're really pushing the thing hard. And I just love the way it feels, locked in, tight turns. I feel like I can do really well flying this quad. I'm not one to get into really the technical specs of this versus that. I know roughly what they are, but what I really care about most is how it does on the track. And I have this quad. I also have a B-Brain brushless by Newbie Drone, and I just gotta tell you, when I put the two on the course, this one is always fast for me, and that just speaks volumes. The big thing for me too is this thing has been through a ton of crashes. This is still the same frame. I haven't broken a single component. I know a lot of people complain about the Beta FPV canopies on this thing, but it has skid across concrete, smacked into concrete, poles, PVC, PEX pipes, you name it, and this thing just keeps on ticking and hasn't cracked yet. So to me, even though it's not the most sturdy thing in the world, it's held up to a lot of abuse and just kept on ticking, and that means a lot to me. Now, the big thing I want to talk about is I got really used to flying brush quads, and now I'm checking out brushless. The big reason why, and why I think everyone needs to be going to brushless, is that turtle mode. Now, I know some brush flight controllers can do turtle mode now, so if you want to try one of those, that's totally fine. It may be more beginner friendly, but in this day and age, you really need turtle mode. Yes, it helps with racing, but what I've also noticed is it really helps you with practice. So for me, I can sit down, fly my course, crash, flip it right back over, get back up, and keep going. That saves precious time. And like I always speak about, if you want to be as good as possible, improve as much as you can, it's about being smart with the time you have to practice. So anything you can do to cut down the amount of time of walking, picking up the thing, and focus on racing and improving your racing, the better you're going to be for it. So for that reason, I'm a huge fan of brushless, and I feel like it's the way you got to go this year. Not so much for the speed, more so for the turtle mode. That brings me into the camera. I'm super impressed with this camera. It's actually the same camera I have on my other quad as well, and that's the M01 camera from Beta FPV that comes in on the Meteor 65. Now, what I can say is that the light handling in this camera is absolutely fantastic. It's a big improvement from the cameras I was using last year. Even the B-Brain camera with the Goober canopy that you see that I had in that B-Brain light, it doesn't handle changes in light as well as this thing does. It's not the most contrasty, not the most pretty image you might see, but I don't care about that when I'm racing. I just want to be able to see where I'm going. So this gives you a little bit more of a washed out picture, a little bit less contrast, but it doesn't get blown out. So I really love flying LED tracks, things with bright lights on them. And so a lot of Whoop cameras, as you're flying, they just get blown out with those lights. This thing does an excellent job at keeping its exposure low enough so that you're not being blown out by those LEDs. You can still see where you're going and still enjoy the time you have flying. So huge fan of that. Now, I do want to talk about this BT 2.0 connector that's on here as well. So this is something where I was kind of planning on taking this off the quad once I did some my first testing just to experience it. But I think this is going to be a really good option for Whoops. I'm not a big fan that it's locked into Beta FPV products. You can't currently purchase other batteries that use this connector. But what I've noticed is that it seems to hold its voltage better than I'm used to with other batteries from other companies. Now, historically, Beta FPV has really not made good batteries. I haven't been a big fan of their batteries. But right now, with the BT 2.0 batteries, I don't think those are the same Beta FPV batteries we're used to. If I lay them out side by side, I notice the new batteries, they're a little bit bigger. I think that's why they're putting out a little bit more power, and I think Beta FPV did that because they wanted to sell you that, hey, look how much better this connector is. Remember that old battery? This one's like way better. Now, keeping in mind that I think the new batteries are better, I still notice that my voltage remains higher while I'm pushing and flying this thing hard. One big thing that I notice is that as I'm flying, once I drop below about 3.2 volts per cell, if I give it too much more time, that thing is going to drop like a rock straight to 2.6. Usually with the battery I'm flying with the PH2 connector, I can get down to 3.0 and still fly for a bit before it then drops down. What that tells me is that this connector is holding its voltage a little bit better, and it's actually giving you more efficiency, better overall power output, but at the cost of not being able to come down to the times that you're usually used to. So you're still just getting good flight times, but you just gotta change the way you look at that voltage, maybe land at a little bit higher voltage than you used to, but I'd much rather fly at a higher voltage and enjoy those parts of the connector. So I'm planning on keeping this connector on there, and I'm really curious to test if I can swap out this connector on some of my other batteries, which are better than the Beta FPVs, and see if I'm still seeing those same sort of benefits. So I'm really curious to check that out. So yeah, what can I say? If you take a look at the props, I've actually put the Gemfan 4 blades on these props. Huge fan of Gemfan props on Whoops. They just perform absolutely fantastic. The first thing you're gonna wanna do with this particular quad when you get it is get rid of those stock props. They are just garbage. They do not fit on the motors properly. As soon as you clip anything, they'll pop off, fly off. It's just not gonna be suitable for racing. You're not gonna be able to do turtle mode to get back on because you're not even gonna have props on your quad. So take those things off. The other thing I need to talk about is the stock motors that come with this bad boy. So when I got it, I got a good discount on it, but it came with the standard 0802 22,000 kV motors by Beta FPV. And I gotta tell you, I don't know what the hell these guys were thinking. Those motors have no business being on a Whoop like this if you plan on racing it. And I know people tend to think, but the faster the motors, the better. But those motors are so efficient, they just cannot, survive on a race that we typically do with these Whoops. What I was doing is I actually ended up putting an 80% throttle cap on it, and I still couldn't fly for 2 minutes with the thing. Swapped them out here for these, the 19500 kV motors. Absolutely fantastic by Beta FPV. Those are the motors that should have been included by default. And once I put those things on there, remove my throttle cap, I can fly for 3 minutes with the exact same batteries. So that really speaks to just how much better the efficiency of these motors are, and still they're not lacking for power. Now you will notice there are certain times when I'm really pushing it hard. I do wish I had a little bit more power, especially when I'm doing descent maneuvers and trying to pull out of them. You'll see my throttle get into 100%. It'll get a little bit squirrely. It can't pull out of it. Maybe a little bit more power would be nice there, but those 22,000 kV motors are not the answer to it. I mean, really, if you're gonna go that route, instead of more power, maybe that's when you start looking at lowering the weight a little bit and doing that way. The other thing I want to talk about in this particular quad is when it ships, it actually ships with a 35-degree camera angle mount in it. Now, me personally, I'm doing racing with these things. I'm flying them in angle mode. There is no need for 35 degrees. You can get full-on tilt just with a 20-degree mount, and it already looks pretty advanced. These things just don't have the power to fly, you know, like this. You can do it, but I just feel like it really makes it a lot more difficult to stay in control on a track. I really wish they ship with that 20-25 degree mount by default installed. It just make it easy for more people. I swapped mine out. I love it the way it flies like this, and I'm just rocking it. So yeah, I really wanted to share this with you guys. I absolutely love this thing. I feel absolutely locked into it. It's the best flying Whoop I have ever flown, bar none, period. And to me, that's all it needs to, that's all that needs to be said. I'm winning races with it. I feel like my times are good. I have a lot of confidence in it. I'm really, really happy. Now, a lot of you are probably gonna ask, hey, Johnny, what do you think about the Mobulus 6? Well, I have one of those on the way. I'm gonna be putting it head to head with this bad boy. In fact, I made a bet with my local boy, Jeff PV. He told me, he bets, I'm gonna take this quad, take that quad, put them on a scale, weigh them. Whatever the percentage difference is in that weight, that my lap times will decrease by that percentage or more. He made a bet with me that'll happen. I'm gonna give him an honest go of it, and when I do that, I'm gonna share the results with you guys. If you wanna know how much of a difference weight makes, be sure to stay tuned to this channel. Be sure to subscribe, click that bell notification so you know when that video goes live, and you too can see what sort of a difference weight makes. But in the meantime, I'm just loving flying this thing. It flies absolutely fantastic, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it right there, and hopefully you enjoy this video, and as always, I'll catch y'all next time. Peace!